What?
You're gonna disappear by.
Really small.
Where? Are we ready to go?
Whenever you.
All right.
Keith, Louis is watching.
Welcome, everyone. Special council meeting. Budget. Call to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor White,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Councilmember Martinez. Councilmember Ortiz. Here. Councilmember Tipton.
Present. Okay, you have a forum. Please stand for the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review.
No changes, Mr. Mayor.
All right. City council workshop, review of proposed 24-25 fiscal year budget. Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Tonight we have a workshop on the fiscal year 24-25 budget. I'm going to do a walk through the slide presentation, and part of that is a proposed way to move through this. This is still relatively high level, but it does give you, we do have a balanced budget, and as soon as we can get this up, we will get started. I think we're getting there. Apologies.
You have something in the background there.
Well, I will just say, we do have a balanced budget. We hope, I will go through just a slide presentation. Some of the slides, I think you saw them at the last meeting. But what I'd like to do is there are a couple more slides there that have more detail related to general fund revenues. And you can see the history of the last 3 years, and the proposed budgets, and all of the departments of the general fund. Then I go through a couple of slides related to fund balance, which you've seen, and cash balances. When we get done with the quick overview, I'm going to open it up to council and the public, and I guess that's probably something that we should talk about. We want as much public input as we can get. So I'm going to ask the city attorney, can we just go out at any time to get public comment?
And that's at the mayor's discretion. I mean, it's on the agenda for right after the staff report,
Okay,
but if he wants to reopen public comment at some later time after some discussion.
Okay.
Do that.
Okay.
and a part of I'll just say, part of the staff report is to allow council, if they've got specific questions related to details in any particular department, that they can ask them. We've got the department heads here to help answer. And then we've got a section that if we want to look at capital improvements and look at what's going on in ClearGov, because everything we've entered this year for the first time is in ClearGov. And for anybody who doesn't know what ClearGov is, it's an online financial, specifically budgeting and reporting transparency piece of software. And we hope to be able to, right now, we're doing our budget in it. And it will have access to the public once we get this all completed. And then what we're planning on doing is posting our at least quarterly results to start off with of where we are, actual versus budget throughout the year, so people can see how we're doing financially. There's the 99% boredom, 1% sheer terror part of it.
Yes.
One thing I will say, I will get started on a couple of things. So I will do the short presentation. I think it's 12 slides. I can ask council if they've got anything we want to look at in particular. Part of the slides, again, is the CIP that we talked about at the overview. And that has not changed, but I do know that there's one item that's not on there that I do want to bring up, and that's, we had talked about at the last city council meeting, we had talked about ADA improvements and how we wanted some improvements to our parks, play equipment to potentially be brought in line with ADA standards. As we look at that, there's a story behind what we've got, and I think we need to talk about that as a potential. It's not listed on the CIPs that we're suggesting, but council did bring it up at the last council meeting, and we do want to address it because it's a potential funding use for council.
So this one?
No, it's a no. It's a PowerPoint. It's the PowerPoint. Should be the same PowerPoint that I sent out yesterday.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Ed. Okay, thank you very much for your patience. Okay, so I think we just went over this. So this short 12-slide introduction is just basically saying we have a balanced budget at this point in time. I want to suggest also a workshop process, and then I'm going to go over the general fund overview of revenues, expenditures, fund balance, and cash. The suggested workshop is to do this short slide presentation. It's got a summary of the general fund, the CIP, and personnel that we want to add for the year. We're going to want to go and it doesn't necessarily have to be in this order if it doesn't work. Review of city council interest to review in details. We can look at anything and everything in detail if you want, but there's probably individual areas that people are more interested in. Also want to take a look at the ClearGov process and access to online information. And I'm going to have Evelyn come up and help us with that. She's much more adept at it than I am. And then the tools that we're going to use for today's analysis. It's really both ClearGov and the spreadsheet that we'll be looking at. Okay, let me clear up some of this. Okay, great. So general fund in review, basically general fund revenues. You'll see here 2 prior years actual expenditure revenues and expenditures, along with what we project for this year, fiscal year 24, and then what we're budgeting for fiscal year 25. And so you see the revenues go from 20 million, 22 million, 19 million that we expect for this year, and then bumping up a little bit to 21 million for the budget year. Expenditures 16.9, 18.3, 19 million this year, and a little over 21 million for fiscal year 25. You see those first 2 years, wow, big surpluses, over $3 million. But remember, those were post-COVID years, and we received ARPA money to the tune of $2.1 million in each of those years. We bumped those up. Having said that, that still means that we had a general fund surplus of around over $1 million in each of those years. You can see in what we're expecting for this year is much shorter than that. It's because our revenues are tight this year. They have not come in exactly the way that we had thought they would. We were expecting the same issues to be true for the next year, and probably for a year or two at least after that. Here's a look at all of the revenue categories. Same thing, we can look at the totals. We just went over them: 20.2, 22.3, 19, and then bumping up again to 21 million. There's a couple of reasons, and we can go through line item by line item. Unless you want to, I'd like to stay away from it, only because if you're interested in it, we will certainly do it. But we have to remember there are a number of factors that go into the variances in revenues and expenses. And one thing that we've been very vigorous about in the past couple of years is going after grants. And we've gotten a few, and we haven't gotten a few. But the point is when we get them, they tend to be several hundreds of thousands of dollars. That impacts both revenues and expenses. And the same ones don't recur year after year. So you're going to see some of these things kind of wove in and out. Expenditures, this one's a bit harder to see. These are all our departmental expenditures. And once again, we get to the point where we're just showing, we just got to a balanced budget, and we did it through a pretty vigorous cost cutting. We did raise a few revenue projections, but it was a very vigorous cost cutting exercise. So that a lot of things that the department heads had put in the budget, we cut out $600,000, I believe, just to get it to balance. And it was a number of things that the city needs to have done. There's a lot of small public works projects related to work on inside of buildings that we had scheduled that we're just going to have to postpone to a different time. We can go through this line by line. At some point, I'd like to get through the slideshow first. Things to remember. Okay, I'm going to back up. Point 1, current year projected should trend with the actuals. And the budget is different because every year, specifically for personnel, we budget for all of our positions to be fully funded for the whole year. Why? Well, because if we do fund them, and actually if we do hire for them, we'll have to have a funding balance for the whole year. So, but that isn't really reality.
It's not the real world.
It's not the real world. That's right. I mean, right now, I think we'll see, I think there's 14 vacancies. And while we do, and those are things that were funded. So when we look at personnel expenses, you're going to see a trend that's going to include this year because we've kind of projected out through June what we're going to have. But then we may see a budgeted number that's significantly higher. We have not added any positions. All we've done is we've funded all the vacancies for the whole year. So let's go back up. Sorry, let me do one thing. Grants are playing a bigger role in Greenfield's revenues. I'll just finish through this. And expenditures. And I kind of went through that already, saying sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. If we do, we spend them. Community outreach is a great place to look at that because we had our 2 years ago, we had our rent and utility stabilization monies coming in. That was several hundreds of thousands of dollars. That came in, good revenue boost, good expenditure boost. So we've got that. Also, we need to be aware because what we like to do when we budget is we like to match current expenditures with current revenues coming in because that's what our job is. It doesn't mean that we don't save money. We do like to have a little bit of surplus available just in case we have a down year. But what we want to do is have a standard balanced budget. And if for some reason we need to dip into reserves, we'll do that. The last few years have been different. You saw on our revenue, our summary revenues versus expenses in 21 and 22, we had large surpluses, largely because we had ARPA money. Okay, the ARPA money is now in our reserves and hasn't been spent. To the extent that we expect to spend it in future years, that actually will be coming out of reserves. Just so that you know that it's not, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So when we say we want to have a balanced budget and match revenues against expenditures, those expenditures that we're going to spend ARPA, those will be coming out of reserves. Okay. So the next couple of slides are slides that we've I posted in the last summary. It's basically to show that over the past 11 years, the red line that goes up is our revenues, the green line is our expenditures, and the blue or purple line down at the bottom is our fund balance. And you see the revenues and expenditures have matched very well, except at the very end here, it looks like there's a little gap, which shows our revenues are higher than our expenditures. That's because we've had a little bit of a surplus. I think these things are going to continue to year after year cross because that's what normally happens. We hope that the bottom fund balance line, knowing that, of course, we have of the $4 million that we've received in ARPA monies, we have about $2 million left because we have spent a number of our wastewater treatment plant and our fire station generators and things like that. So, in all actuality, we're in pretty good shape. That's also reflected in our cash balance at the end of through fiscal 24, which is through April. So you see in fiscal year 11-12, we had about $12 million in cash, and that has ramped up pretty steadily. A couple of little jolts along the way. To this year, we've got $28 million in the bank. And I mean, look at fund balance, that's great. But really, I mean, that's the technical measure of how solvent an organization is. Fund balance is the same as equity. Cash is another great way because it should be relatively equal. So as a city, we have, multiplied by about 2.5 times our cash reserves over the past 12 years. That's very healthy. So We still want to have a balanced budget. Doesn't mean we want to dip into those reserves if we can avoid it. And we think that the plan this year is going to be a solid example of that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about revenues and expenditures. Our capital improvements, this again is from the same as our last overview that we had at the last council meeting. We've got capital improvements to the tune of, well, I've broken them into three sections. One is because a lot of times, like when we have, you saw those first 2 years, fiscal year 21 and 22, we had those large surpluses. ARPA monies were those, and we kind of want to, we can't spend them on anything we want to. There are certain things that we can spend that on, but the regular surplus, which is in excess of $1 million, normally we would use that surplus to help fund capital projects. This year, current year, as well as the budget year that we're talking about, don't have very big surpluses at all. And so the general fund is not going to be able to contribute to CIP projects. So what we've done is we've said, okay, let's break this down, our CIP efforts, into 3 categories. First one is anything that we want to do is funded by anything but the general fund. And a lot of times you'll see that's grants, that's money from CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grants, Measure X, which is a gas tax. What else do we have? Sewer and the enterprise funds and using impact fees. So we have 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We have 15 projects totaling $7.6 million that we said, hey, we've got funding for it, and it's not from the general fund. 7.6 million is a lot of money. And in fact, to actually be able to do this, it actually could cause problems because a lot of these are streets oriented. It could cause problems with traffic unless it's done very carefully. But we do have money for all of these things. So I'll go through each one. The Public Safety Radio Tower, it's $1 million. We've already received that money. And that's a project it's a grant. And the police department's handling that. Widening the sidewalk infield. That's being handled by CDBG and Measure X funds. Walnut Avenue pedestrian plan, that's the one we've seen in the news recently. Zoe Lofgren was talking about that. It's about widening the pedestrian paths over Walnut and Oak and some other work. Current year 3-year streets program, that's the 3rd year, I believe, and that's paid for by gas tax. Self-contained breathing apparatus filling station. I think I should correct this. I believe we do not have a grant for that yet. Is that right, Chief? Okay. So we applied for it. We haven't got it yet. So if we don't get it, then that'll come off. Public Works Purchasing Program, $30,000. That's going to be coming out of Measure X. Wastewater treatment plant design, a little over $3 million coming out of the Sewer Enterprise Fund and impact fees. Citywide CCTV of sewer lines, which is, I think, the 3rd year of the program that we are required to do, coming out of the Sewer Enterprise Fund. Wastewater treatment plant emergency repairs, $300,000 coming out of the Sewer Enterprise Fund. And a sewer mains upgrade and replacement, $136,250. Those sewer mains replacements are commitments that we've made in our rate study increase that was done earlier this year. Was it this year? Last year, this fiscal year, I know that. And we had found that the same projects that were identified in the previous rate study were not done a number of years ago. So we want to make sure that all of this gets outlined in our budget. So we know we've got this to do. Tyler lift station replacement, sewer impact fees, $200,000. Backflow device replacement, $200,000, and that's water enterprise. As are these next 3. Water tank improvements, $147,000. Water well design at 14th and Cherry, 70,000, and water main replacements, 260,000. I think those also were, replacement of mains identified, in the rate study. So if we could do a good portion of that, we'll do it. We would love input tonight on priorities. I mean, there are a number of these that if they are grants, which I only see actually one, there might be time constraints on. And there might be priorities, but if there's anything the council wants to see, we'd love to hear it. The second category is funding by other than the general fund, but requires a general fund match. So we've got two of those projects at this time, totaling $140,000. One of them is our citywide generator project that requires $96,000 from the general fund, but it is over $1 million in total generators that we would be able to get. And the second one is our Patriot Park Dog Park that would require $44,000 from the general fund, and it's a total about $222,000. And then the third area is just things that we necessarily need to fund through the general fund because there's necessarily no other place to fund it from. And right now we've got the one that's listed here, the general plan update, year 1 out of 2. The total cost we estimate to be around $700,000, and we would be taking $250,000 from the general fund. The other one I'd like to bring up is the ADA improvements that were brought up by Mayor Pro Tem at the last council meeting. So we went through and tried to figure out, make an estimate on how much we thought those improvements might cost, and we started looking into it. We discovered, well, some of these things that we think we need or want, certainly, we're actually required to have up to the latest specification. And please, if anybody here knows all the rules, let me know, because I don't think I'm perfect on this. But the general rule for ADA improvements is ADA came into being 30 years ago, and it was a set of rules as to how to provide access for disabled people. There was a set of rules. Anything that you were required to build certain things for public access to public buildings, sidewalks, curbs, all that. And there was a set of rules. Over the years, that has changed. The rules don't say that you need to improve as the rules change and go back and redo things. It just says that if you've got them and they were built at a time and follow the rules then, until you redo it or improve it or what have you, change it, let's say, we don't need to bring it back up to, we don't need to bring it up to the current standards. So you say, so what does that mean to us? What that means to us is, I think the conversation that started related to playground equipment and how we have playground equipment, and yes, we do have some of it that is ADA approved, or we think was ADA approved, but that we have wood chips. So that someone couldn't roll a wheelchair through it. That sounds like a potential problem. Well, it might be, but we think, and we have to find this out, that when that play structure was placed in that park, we're thinking we determine whether the rules said we needed to have something other than either sand or wood chips. Because if in fact we are compliant with the law, then staff's position would normally be, we'll leave it that way until council tells us to change it. So in order to do that, we should have a document or a series of files called an ADA plan. We've been looking for that. It should have been prepared years and years ago and updated as we did more ADA improvements, and we have not yet found it. So part of this ADA improvements might go towards either probably developing the ADA plan that we have. So related to ADA, any questions comments? The staff's position will be if we followed the law at the time these ADA improvements were put into use, those are the rules that will follow. Council can certainly override us, and that's your job if you so desire. But we need to establish a concrete set of facts as to when these ADA improvements were put in, each one of them, and which rules they should follow. So I'm going to add ADA onto here, but I don't know what the scope of that is, and I think we need to determine that at some point.
Yeah, I think we need to get back to us on exactly what that plan would look like, and then we can make a decision based on
Okay.
what you find out.
Okay,
I
very
think
good.
we definitely need to at least move in that direction and start doing some park improvements.
Very good. Okay, so in summary, we've got a balanced budget. Total additional personnel requested at this point is one person, an IT technician, to help Ed with his myriad of duties. And the CIP requested, I just rolled over that. It looks like we got a surplus of 175,000. This is saying taking out the general plan, because that certainly unless we wanted to dip into reserves, we wouldn't be able to pay for that with current year revenues. But we could hit those matches for both the generators and the dog park with what's expected as a reserve. Having said that, this is a moving target. I mean, we have no idea what the economy is going to be like. We really don't know what we're going to have as far as vacancies. We don't know a number of things because there are ways to manage as things ebb and flow throughout the course of the year. And one of those ways is to not hire immediately after someone leaves. And because such a great percentage of all of our expenses are people related, there's a disproportionate benefit to having personnel spots being vacant. So what's the downside of that? Well, the upside is we save money. Downside is,
Get the work done.
yeah, we don't get the services. That's what we're in the business for. So we're either, if we are backfilling, then we're paying more because we've got to pay overtime. So the point is, there's ways to keep this balance. There's ways to generate money. And bottom line is this year, of this coming year, of all years, we're going to need to monitor what's coming in, what's going out, and have a much tighter, I don't want to say tighter control. We've been blessed. The whole time I've been, I'm a relatively smart guy, but we're very lucky. The people that were here before me and councils before you voted to have sales tax increases. We got cannabis. This administration really collects those taxes, and we've got a great relationship with the cannabis people. That is $3 to $4 million between the two, between additional sales taxes and cannabis taxes that have helped to build out fire department, police department, recreation, community engagement, public works, to where we're actually getting to get all this done. Well, now we're getting to a point where we're filling most of the seats. We've got a great staff. We're putting a lot of things on capital improvements. We're trying to catch up from years of not quite being able to get it done. And it's expensive. So we're blessed to have those additional monies. We've pretty much programmed it all out. So, and I think the economy's trended down to the extent that I think it's actually going to be trending. I don't know how much lower it's going to go, but it's not going to be bouncing up anytime soon. So we need to be able to manage this much tighter. So that's basically, okay, there's that. A scenario change, we will update city council and the community regarding priorities and possible changes to plans. So that is gonna be via ClearGov, and hopefully, we're gonna do a little thing on ClearGov after we get some input from the public and council. And we'll go from there. So, questions?
Let's go ahead and let's open it up for public comment first, and then we can do questions to council. So anybody would like to make any public comment on the budget?
Are we limited? Are we limited to the 3 minutes?
Yes.
All right, so I'm Dr. Lourdes Villarreal, and good evening. I'm, first of all, I want to say that I'm very pleased to have been working on the Parks and Recreation Committee, and I want to thank Jesus Perez for his leadership and the members of the committee, Vasquez, McClure, and Rodriguez. And I want to say that I got involved in the Parks and Recreation Committee because of things that I saw in my neighborhood park. So I think that's a good way for people to get involved, right? If you have concerns, complaints, get involved. And so I'm really happy to have been on that committee. Well, that I am still on the committee. And I want to encourage you to consider funding the doggy park, because you were talking about how, the economy is still, iffy. And so going to parks and taking advantage of the free services there, right? And so not everybody's into athletics, and there's some sport or something to go play at the park. And so a lot of people, I myself have a pet, and so I see that, people are walking their dogs, and having actually a doggy park makes it safer, especially like for people like me who have a small dog. So I want to encourage you to consider, funding the doggy park. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hansford. Well, sometimes I notice when you water when you do something you put it on push of them. Thank you.
Anyone else in chambers? Nobody online? All right, I'll bring it back to council. Council questions, comments? Okay, I have a few. On the general fund overview, Paul, I noticed the 23-24 was down on revenue, and then so then 24-25 will be up. Are you what are you basing that on? It be up. It looks, it's up about $2 million.
Yeah. Yes, some of that is, so there's a significant dip this year that we think is still going. I mean, if you took out 23-24, you still see a flat to a little bit of a decrease from 22-23 to 24-25. These are two things. We've got a couple of grants coming in, including the youth help for youth. So we've got internships. We've got that. We've actually had some additional transfers in that are coming into the general fund from other general funds. that we did in previous years. The LLMDs need to transfer some monies over. The funding, it's the former redevelopment agency. If you recall, we had redevelopment back a number of years ago. That went away in 2014, I believe, and ever since then, we've been accounting to the state. They've been doling out monies to pay off part of our debt from redevelopment. And for the last, almost 2 years, we've been going through an exercise of basically reconciling all the monies that had to do with the former redevelopment agencies. One of the things that we found this year was that there were payments that so we get money from property owners that will pay for the bonds that we borrowed to do development of this building. There was one that came that went out. So we did a final accounting for the former redevelopment agency. But finally, there's a couple $100,000. So that this actually ended up being paid out of the general fund a number of years back. It was just a number that kept being. So we closed everything out. We took that somewhere $200,000 and put it back in here. Well, since it was called an expense in a prior period, it comes over as a revenue here. So there's a number of things. There's grants, there's interfund transfers, there was a year that the water fund and the water fund and the sewer fund transfer administrative fees back to the general fund. There was a couple of years when we went back. There was 2 years that's right. So we picked that up as well. So the short answer is the one-time funding coming into the general fund, only due to the general fund, but hadn't been picked up from prior years. That's what got us there. So without those, it's a pretty flat year. And what we'll see when we do get into ClearGov, we'll see I think we've got 4 or 5 years entered in, so that you'll see some graphs showing that we were going like this, but now we're kind of flattening out as revenues and things kind of hit the ceiling, as it were. So that's in general, that's where we actually go up from this current year to next year.
So mostly one-time monies.
Yes. I'll say it's all one-time monies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So future projections are a little feedback around that.
Right. Well, I don't think the economy is going to recover necessarily. And so we're I think, a steady state. And we will have to find, we'll have to find some extra money somewhere, I think somewhere in the next 12 months to keep ourselves where we are.
The next page on the general fund revenues.
Yeah.
There's like on the other taxes and the it looks like that's up $1.3 million there. Is there some reason for that? Maybe explain to us what is involved in the other taxes.
Yeah, so the other taxes, in fact, let's and we're gonna go into the spreadsheet and we'll show you line by line,
Okay.
What's what. Part of that is I do expect there to be I don't want to say significant, but an increase in sales taxes compared to this year. I also think I'm a conservative revenue budgeter. It's entirely possible that this year's sales tax will be higher than what we projected. Okay, so let's look at other taxes.
Other taxes. Other taxes.
Good evening, Mayor.
Oh.
City Council. Yes.
Because
So this is the breakdown for the other taxes. Line 18.
we're not,
Oh, you're not, oh.
Oh,
We'll stop the share.
oh, shit.
okay. Sorry.
You see that?
Okay. Right.
Okay, so looking at, so other taxes are made up of business license tax, cannabis tax, sales tax, and then the transaction and use tax, which are both sales taxes as well, and TOT, transient occupancy tax, and utility user tax. So I think we're going to rebound on a plane that's relatively straight from 22, 23 to 24, 25 on basically all three taxes, whether it's the standard, they call it Bradley-Burns sales tax, and the two additional measures, V, VX, and W. So that's where, I mean, that's where a big chunk of getting to where we need to go comes from. And that's part of the reason that we really need to make sure we get these checks from the state every month. And everybody's seen it, I've got a pretty good spreadsheet that shows what we expect every single month based on who's here and how much money they spend. That where we are versus where we expect to be at the end of the year, even though it might be the first month of the year or the second month of the year. So I think these are good numbers. I think actually this year's numbers are going to end up being better than what we've got here. And so the increase that I've got in sales taxes is not necessarily, I don't think it's a big jump. I think it's more along the lines of a decent increase.
you think inflationary pressures and things like that will
Yeah,
offset.
yeah, and another thing is we did sign up for HDL. HDL does an analysis every year of our property taxes. We signed up for their sales tax services. So one of the additional things that they offer is to go in and do audits. So of sales tax suppliers, just to keep them on their toes related to what they're reporting. So we hope there's going to be some impact from that as well. Also, there's always progress being made towards when we buy things through Amazon or anything where they're supplied by regional centers. There's always an issue related to allocating the sales tax appropriately to cities like ours, where there's always mistakes being made, and then there are reallocations. I was notified that there wasn't necessarily Amazon, but it was another big, another big seller online was making some big changes. So, and that it would probably benefit not just Greenfield, but it would benefit the smaller agencies that kind of get left out of the loop.
So you're comfortable in these numbers that you're showing us here, these
Yeah.
index going from 1.9 to 2.4, $500,000. You think we're going to be able to do that?
I also think that, I mean, as of today, so we're 1 month away from the end of the fiscal year. There's what, 3 or 4, I think there's 4 months that we still, so we obviously don't have June, but we don't have May, we don't have April, we don't have March yet.
So you're just projecting those.
Yeah, so we've been projecting those and they can change wildly. So we'll know month over month, we should be getting numbers towards the end of June for March. And we'll be updating this. So it's pretty precise, but there's a long lag. And so we'll be looking at that on a consistent basis, because obviously these are big portions of our tax base.
Okay. I think we definitely, will need to stay right on top of these numbers and kind of come back to us when you see what the actuals are. So that we're, that we're comfortable where we're at.
Yep.
I actually have one question real quick on the general fund revenue slide. Is why have our charges for services gone down so dramatically? Charges for services in 21-22 were $1.2 million, and now we're down to 100,000.
Yeah.
Yes, I think what happened here, so if you, no, here, if you will look at line 83 and line 84, actually this big amounts here that you're seeing were corrections from previous fiscal years. So what happened was that there was a expenditure that was recorded as liability. So we have to adjust that to, at that time when we did adjustment was in fiscal year 21-22. And so that's why there's a big amounts there. These are adjustments from previous fiscal years. And we are also seeing some adjustments here in the fiscal year 22-23. And then here it's back to normal, fiscal year 23-24 and the current coming fiscal year.
As well as, those were big, 22 and 23 were big development years.
Okay.
So we actually did have some larger developments. Not to say, I mean, once again, we want to be conservative. There are things going on in the development realm that these, I'm hoping they're larger, but we're not going to count on it being larger. Is that
That's your question. Okay. Let's see. The things to remember page, talking about the ARPA money. Now those need to be allocated soon, correct?
Yes, so ARPA monies need to be allocated or identified as far as what we're going to spend them on by December 31st, 2024. So that's this calendar year, yep, or this fiscal year that we're planning for, absolutely. And it will need to be spent by December 31st of 2026.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure what we're all going to select as far as what we're going to allocate them on, but I'm sure it won't take that long to spend.
How much was that?
It's a little over $2 million out of our 4.2 that we originally got.
The general fund revenues page for expenditures. I noticed that the cash balance there shows around $5 million, so actually about $8 million, I guess. And then the next page shows our cash balance. Can you kind of explain to everybody what the difference is in those?
Okay.
That's general fund revenues and expenditure paid into the cash balance.
Okay, general fund revenues. So can you repeat that?
The general fund revenues expenditure page and the cash balance years.
Oh, okay.
The general fund revenues, the expenditure, shows a general fund balance of around, looks like around $8 million there probably.
Yep.
And, our cash and balances, of course, show much higher than that.
Yeah. So not everything we have in cash is general fund. So, we have a lot of, collected monies, that are not part of the general fund. The majority of them are impact fees that we've collected on developments that need to be spent as well. The large majority of the difference between the roughly 8 million in fund balance for the general fund and the 27 million is around 20 million. I'm sorry, it's less than that. It's over 10 million in impact fees. And then we also have large cash balances in the water fund, and less so in the wastewater fund. So it's, the difference there is you're looking at fund balance. Because normally the general fund balance would be about the same as the general fund cash balance. Because we don't have a lot of other assets in there. It's cash in, cash out. We don't have a lot of liabilities. We don't have a lot of other things, deferrals, that kind of thing. So if you're looking at the cash balance, you're really looking at, for the general fund, you're looking at the fund balance, so.
All right, I mean, I just had a few general questions, comments, I think. Obviously, this is a much tighter budget than we've had in the past years, so
Yeah.
I think we've all got to be really on top of our expenditures and enhance any sources that we can get. And I think, council should get a pretty regular report on this because we're so much tighter, so.
Yep.
Any asks that come from different departments are really going to need to be a necessary ask. There's not going to be a lot of discretion for us, so.
Right.
It's just some general comments. Anything else from council? Not at the moment. Okay.
I'd like to still look over, I wrote down a lot of notes right here. I'd really like to hear the input from the other two council members. When we're still gonna have another meeting, aren't we?
Yeah, so we have scheduled, although we don't need to do it, an item for the next council meeting to approve the budget.
Mhm.
But we can wait, or we can get the input from the council members before, you entertain a motion, or we can move it to the 25th. Or we could do a special meeting.
I'd really like their input. I know that there were some things that they were really had questions on,
Okay.
and I think it's really important that we hear from all of us.
Okay,
Another comment on the ClearGov system looks like it's going to be very detailed, but it's something new to us. So if we could get hard copies of the bound books like we've got in the
Okay.
past, that would be very helpful for analyzing the existing budget. But
okay,
that's a steep learning curve on ClearGov. So
okay. So
I've been in there a couple times and it's a little work.
well, thank you for trying. I do appreciate it. The book is one of the big reasons we tried to, come up with a better solution because it's all manual. It takes forever to do. What we'd like to, and we'll get you whatever you need to have to analyze this appropriately. Absolutely. What we'd like to do is at some point soon actually print out the digital book that ClearGov has, because we're not quite sure exactly what it looks like. There are a lot of things that they want us to do, enter narratives as to what these departments are, what they do, why you're doing this, your strategic, because it's set up to be a budget document that is an award-winning GFOA, Governmental Finance Officers Association, which I would love for us to have because it shows that we put a lot of care and effort into the budget process. Having said that, they're asking for a ton of information that doesn't help us today in figuring out what we want to spend and what we want to, declare as revenues. So what we'd like to do.
I want to show them.
Oh, sure. So do you have something for the
Yes.
budget book?
Yes, we
Oh.
have something there.
Cool. She's good.
Yeah, I went on there and I tried to print it and I walked away with a stack about that big on the printer,
You did.
canceled it. 'Cause it's not what I wanted. I think I got a book.
Oh, how to share
I gotta
this,
show this again.
how to share this image. How to, yes, where it all.
Here it is.
Okay, so this is our ClearGov software. So in here we have home where basically you will see the face of it, what's inside this ClearGov software. And then we have the capital budgeting. I'm sure you have probably all seen this already since we have given you the access. And then this is our personal budgeting. This is our operational. And then we have the digital budget book. So in here, we have some testing done. And what I'm gonna show you is the budget in brief. So this is what you will see. Paul was saying they're asking us a lot of information before we complete this budget book. Like, for example, history of the city, demographics, organization chart, fund structure, basis of budgeting, financial policies, budget process, and then some other things. But so what we did, we skip all that steps just to show you the numbers. And so we have to go to fund summaries. And then in here, we have the consolidated, which means all the general fund. Like we have the general fund, which is basically the government administration or government fund or general government, shall I say. We have the fire fund, we have the community engagement, the ARPA, the BNW. And so we have consolidated that. Let's just take time to load. So what you have seen earlier in the presentation is exactly what's in the digital budget book. And we have that 175,000 surplus. So this is how it looks like in the digital budget book. So you can see everything here. And then if you want to go more detail, you just need to click this one. Oh, sorry. And then if you want to see the details, and then it will show you the details. So basically what we have shown you also earlier. These are the tax revenue, other taxes, franchise fees, fees and permits, and all the other revenues. So you will see all this in ClearGov. If you want to, like have a copy now of what you have seen earlier, you can actually see all these numbers in ClearGov. And that is the revenue. And I just gonna show you we have to collapse this. I'm gonna show you this is the graph that also basically showing you the breakdown.
By fund.
Yes, and then below is the, okay, we're still expenditure. This is the expenditure. General fund, which is the general government. So this is the portion of each fund in the general fund. And then this is the
Is it possible to have
the expenditure.
is it possible to have a little, maybe a Teams or a Zoom session with the council members? Or can I do that?
As long as you don't have a quorum in each session, so
Okay.
you could do 2-2-1.
Okay. Is it possible to do? I mean, is that something that would
I would
interest the
love that,
council?
yeah.
That
And
would,
this has changed.
that way you can on your computer, while she's talking to you via Teams or whatever, you can go take a look at stuff and do what she's doing and actually go through it at the
Yes.
same time.
Because this has changed dramatically from when I looked at it on Tuesday. So I mean,
Oh.
you've added a couple more sections here. On Tuesday, all that was in there was the capital budget. So
Okay,
Yeah.
that might have to do with
Yes.
just access.
Yes, the access, yeah.
Yeah, so
Originally, you have only the access to capital budgeting. So we have added the operational budgeting, so you can see the breakdowns, but if you really want to go line by line, this is where you will find it. And you can actually write any comments there or notes. This is it. And then you can actually, if you want to look at it by fund and then by department, you can do that. And then this is the general fund, city council, these are all your expenditure. So let's say, for example, if you want to see, okay, Evelyn, how come there's so much, well, how come the membership is like 68,000? And then you can just go here and then there you're gonna see the breakdown for that 68,000 of membership.
Right, so do you know what that says? Can you read that?
Yes, here is per capita assessment, South Salinas Valley Broadband Authority, congestion management and traffic monitoring. So this is basically all the membership fees that we have been paying for the council. So it's all here. Yeah. So you can break it down, and then if, for example, you want to leave a note or comments, you can just come here at the side, and then you can add note or add comment.
So if we add notes or whatever, that does not change your.
Yes, you can also ask question like, okay, if you don't see the breakdown there, you can ask, you know, where's the breakdown, or can you give us a breakdown for this? And we'll do that. We can do that here as well.
You get those are real time, the comments, you don't?
Yes. Once you entered any comments or remarks, it will save automatically. Once you hit tab, or you have to hit tab, and then it will save automatically, and it's, you know, online real time, as you have said.
If you respond to it.
No, but you-
I potentially have some concerns with the council members commenting if they're able to see each other's comments, because that is going to effectively be a meeting outside of a public meeting.
They won't be able to see them, right?
Oh.
No, well, if
When we make comments.
the mayor makes a comment, will the other council members be able to see?
No, only as the administrator can see it. Yeah.
And they are going to be classified as reviewers. And they
Yes,
can't make
yes,
changes, but they can make comments.
yes.
So they won't be able to see each other's comments.
Yes.
I'm just, and then beyond that, if staff is taking action based on a consensus of council's comments, I have some discomfort with that as well, even if they can't see each other's comments,
Okay,
and outside of a public meeting. So if you were to
Right.
come to the meeting and
Yeah.
provide these are the
Yeah.
summary of the comments that we received, that would be good.
okay. Does that makes sense to do?
Right.
Okay. All right, so that's what we do. You got that?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other comments or feedback? Good.
Did everybody get a chance to look at the CIP projects? Because there's a number of them on there.
Okay, if you go to the
Yeah.
CIP,
I think those, you know, that's what we need to focus on as the CIP projects, especially because those are not general fund monies for the most part.
Right.
If we spend any general fund monies, we need to leverage our money. And make sure that we're using it wisely so that we're not, you know, dipping into reserves for something that we're not leveraging, so.
Right.
These, I think, are the items that we really do need to focus on in the coming year, trying to get some of this stuff done and see how things go in the future, but gotta really keep a close eye on expenditures, of course.
Did you say you wanted direction on Or, you know,
We want
priority?
comments, we certainly want, I mean, you say you made a comment related to, you want to hear the other two council members' input. Awesome. If you've got ideas for individual line items,
Mhm.
I guess we can hear them. Does that make sense? They do have a quorum. Yeah, we'd be happy to hear that. And
I didn't have one, I'm just.
Okay. we can, yeah, so if you've got it, you can either put it there or you can put it in an email
Okay.
to me or to Evelyn or to both of us.
Oh,
And like the two items here that are, you know, do have funds coming from the general fund. I think that makes sense because you're leveraging that money
Yep.
from the grants. So.
Yep.
um,
We are actively looking to see if there's any way that we can use other funds to help fund the general plan. But as Mr. Mugan has pointed out, that's a once every 20-year exercise. And we probably should be socking money away. It's a significant amount of money. It could be up to $1 million to get a general plan redone. And we probably should just bite the bullet, you know, 50,000 bucks
$50,000 a year or
whatever.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and just save for it.
All right. Everybody was that? All right. Thank you very much, both of you, for a lot
Okay.
of hard work over the last month or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Thanks
So,
again.
so we'll work hard at getting you a printed copy of what we've got.
I think I would feel more comfortable with printed copy, at least for this year, until we get used to the new system.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, definitely we can do that.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
Great job. You're welcome.
So we're gonna close this now. We're done. Do they want to take a look?
No,
And,
I'll take that.
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Until tomorrow. Stop. Just that.